Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. In today's video, we'll discuss a few lessons I've learned since leaving my teenage years behind to give some of our younger viewers some ammunition for adulthood. In a recent video, Raphael shared 10 things he wishes he had known in his 20s now that he's in his 30s and has some hindsight on the matter. I'm currently about halfway through my 20s, and I can safely say that I found several of those tips to be quite helpful. With that said, our comments section also illustrates that we've got a number of aspiring gentlemen who are still in their teenage years, so I've compiled my own list of a few things I wish I had known when I was that age. Without any further ado, let's jump right in. Tip number 1 is to start saving money now while you still have a safety net. Now, Raphael also began his list with a tip about saving money, and at first glance, you might think that he gave the opposite advice. After all, his tip was that you can't save your way into prosperity. However, these points aren't actually mutually exclusive. What Raphael meant to say is that you can't set yourself up for financial stability or a more prosperous lifestyle just by pinching all of your pennies and trying to do everything on the cheap. Rather, instead of trying to save a few dollars or cents here and there with each purchase you're making, it's important to set aside money for savings at the outset that you won't be tempted to use when making purchases. In other words, it's important to make a budget, make savings a part of that budget, and then stick to the plan you've made. That way, your savings will accumulate interest, and they'll be there for emergencies if you need them, but you won't be tempted to dip into them every time you're making a purchase. Also, it's likely that as a teen, you're probably still a legal dependent of someone else, and therefore you're not paying expenses like rent, utilities, and so on. If that's the case for you and you don't have these expenses, maximize your savings now. Number 2 is another financial tip. Quality is a better long-term investment than quantity. As a teen, and like we said, it's probable that you don't have many expenses. But at the same time, you might not yet have a full-time job or any job at all, and therefore not have a great, steady source of income. Whatever the case, if your income is limited, not only should you be saving money, but you should also be wise when you do choose to spend it. This philosophy can extend to any type of purchase, of course, but to relate it back to the Gentleman's Gazette's central theme of menswear, it's better to have in your wardrobe core pieces of quality garments that are well made and will last you a long time than to have a closet full of cheaply made garments that will wear out after only 1 or 2 uses. Take it from style icon Cary Grant, who once related a lesson that his father had taught him. It's better to buy 1 pair of good shoes than 4 cheap ones. And to use myself as an example here, I did buy cheap shoes for a number of years, but only once getting into my 20s and indeed joining the Gentleman's Gazette did I finally fully internalize the wisdom of saving up money to buy 1 good quality pair of shoes. On that note, be sure to stay tuned for some upcoming content about some of our favorite dress shoe brands in the $100 to $300 price range coming soon. Next up, tip number 3 is that a conventional high school education is probably missing a great deal of information that you'll actually need to be an adult in the quote-unquote real world. For example, many or most high schools these days don't offer many courses on basic financial literacy, like balancing a checkbook or doing your taxes, home economics, like cooking or garment care, automotive repair, or even things like sex ed and family planning. As such, in order to learn these things, you'll often have to look outside of school. Turn to your parents, grandparents, or other mentors who could teach you some of these lessons, and keep in mind that they may not even have to be older than you. For example, if you've got a friend who's a whiz in the kitchen, you might be able to learn some cooking techniques or recipes from them. As the saying goes, knowledge is power. And by the way, we've done several videos covering garment care. You can find our playlist on that subject here. Speaking of high school, or indeed even middle school, number 4 is a social tip. Almost everyone is probably just as insecure as you are, if not more so. It's no secret that school social dynamics can be hard on a lot of teens. You don't have to look any further than TV shows or movies set in high school to take a look at the interplay and drama between various social cliques. The jocks, the nerds, the popular kids, and so on. And in the age of social media, things like cyberbullying have in some ways only accelerated in the 21st century. So, while it may be tough to remember sometimes, if you are feeling insecure about your personality or your social standing, many of your peers are probably feeling the same things. If you are experiencing genuine bullying, which keep in mind can be both physical and emotional, do seek the help of someone like a teacher, a counselor, a parent, or someone else whom you trust. But if you're just finding difficulty trying to fit into a certain social mold as a result of peer pressure, just don't do it. To paraphrase another old saying, insecurity loves company. If you can be true to your own identity by following your own passions and interests, your mental health will likely be better overall. This point actually dovetails into two others on my list, and the first is number 5. You're not going to be able to please everyone, and you shouldn't try to. In the same way that your peers might have certain expectations for you about how to fit into a social group, your elders, such as parents, teachers, coaches, and so on, might also have communicated to you some expectations for ways your life could turn out. Remember though, the one person with ultimate control over your future should be you. Now, this doesn't mean you should outright refuse the advice of your elders or rebel just for its own sake. Far from it. In fact, if you can use the advice of your elders and mentors to your advantage, so much the better. Just remember that if you have different ideas for what you want your future to be than your parents or other mentors do, it's important to have open and honest conversations with them to determine how to best set yourself up for future success. Tip number 6 also relates to the point about social insecurity. You don't have to hang around with a group of people you don't like just out of a desire to fit in. Having a group to which you feel you belong is a natural human desire. After all, even if we are more introverted by nature, we still like having a community to return to for support when we need it. But therein lies the key point. If you find yourself hanging around with people who don't support your choices, your identity, or your future plans, and are just taking advantage of your desire to fit into some group, you would do well to move on. Alternatively, it may be the case that you were close to someone as a young child and considered yourselves to be good friends. However, as time has gone on, you may have become very different people and grown apart. If you find that maintaining a relationship like that isn't beneficial for one or both of you, it may be time to part ways in a polite fashion. And polite is a key word here. If you do find that it would be beneficial for you to leave a social group or exit a relationship, you should always try to do so without hostility. Burning bridges can come back to bite you, especially if you find that it would make sense to reach out to someone again in the future. Be polite, be honest, and try to move on that way. On the subject of social dynamics in school, you've probably heard the old line at some point, high school doesn't last forever. And while I do agree with this sentiment insofar as the hierarchies and drama of high school stop mattering once you're an adult, there is also a flip side to this. Because we now live in the age of social media, your teenage choices can follow you around for much longer. With the internet, everything is online now, and it can live forever if it's archived. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to have fun or that you can make adventurous choices, but just remember that whatever you post on social media can follow you around. It's a fact that in today's business environment, many companies, both large and small, will take a look at your social media profiles in addition to your conventional resume and references. So, you should not only be careful about the kinds of activities you engage in the first place, but also what you eventually post to social media. You've probably heard of the so-called grandma test for this, which is to say that you shouldn't post anything on social media that you wouldn't want your grandmother to see. This extends to videos, pictures, texts, tweets, you name it. If you use social media in a curated way to present your best self to the world, not in a way that's showing off or bragging, but just in a way that makes you look professional and true to yourself, your 20-something self is going to thank you when they're looking for a job, a life partner, or anything else. Number 8 is another quick tip on social media. While everyone is trying to present their best selves on social platforms, remember that everyone does have their own insecurities and their own challenges, and you shouldn't judge yourself by the standards of other people's social media profiles. Remember that by and large, you're only seeing what other people want you to see on social media, and that nobody truly lives a perfect life. You can certainly be inspired by other people, but if you're constantly comparing yourself to what they post on social media, it's only going to get you down. For tip number 9, let's jump back to my earlier point about making decisions for your future, as there's an important distinction to be made here. While you aren't too young to have any idea what you want, you are still allowed to not know what you want. Remember here that life is a journey and everybody figures out their own personal path at a different time. Many teens exit high school feeling like they have to go to college or that they have to major in a certain field, for example. This is likely the first point in your life at which you'll be making significant decisions about how you want to shape your future. And while it's definitely okay to feel like you have a solid idea of where you want to go and to tell others about it, it's also equally okay to not have any idea what you'd like to do and to seek help. Keep in mind also that even if you think you have things all figured out, your experiences in college, vocational school, the military, or a first job after high school may make it clear to you that what you thought you wanted wasn't the right fit after all, and that's okay too. As I said before, have honest conversations with mentors or others you trust, and don't be afraid to re-evaluate your life choices if you feel the need to. On that note, another way to figure out the path that your life will take is to try new things and be okay with the possibility of failure. In other words, tip number 10 is that making mistakes is a natural part of life, and not attempting things just because you fear failure will only leave you stuck where you are. Of course, I'm not saying here that you should intentionally put yourself in harm's way or go out and make a bunch of rash and irresponsible decisions. What I do mean is that only through the process of trial and error, just by doing the work of life to try new things, are you going to learn with the greatest degree of certainty what your strengths and weaknesses are and how to move forward accordingly. And on the subject of weaknesses, tip number 11, and our final tip for today, is one of the biggest, speaking from my own personal experience. It's always important to set aside your pride or your fears about others' perceptions of you and to ask for help when you need it. This point is probably best represented by just having me tell you about some of my own personal experiences in school. I've always loved to learn, and I was a model student even from a young age. School wasn't really that difficult for me in my early years, and I didn't have to put in a lot of work to get good grades. But this would come back to bite me later. I had developed poor study habits from not having to work too hard, and once I reached late middle and early high school, I hit a wall because my procrastination habits had caught up with me. However, because I was too prideful to seek help from my teachers, I didn't want to not be seen as the smart kid, I didn't seek help, and that's when I experienced my greatest period of academic difficulty. It was only after going through a few poor semesters of school, and by having my parents force me to seek help from my teachers, that I finally was able to course correct. And guess what? Old habits die hard because I did hit another similar academic wall in college. That time around, I was able to seek advice on my own and not have people force me into doing so. But with this said, it was still hard for me to swallow my pride and set aside my fears about what others' perceptions of me were in order to seek the help that I needed to graduate, which I eventually did. So here's the lesson to take away from my experiences. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it can actually be a sign of strength. Once I opened up to my teachers and professors and let them know about the difficulties I was having, I was happy to find that they wanted to help me and that having me succeed was actually part of their job as educators. In my case, I was told that I didn't need to doubt my intelligence, only that I needed help with my time management skills and my follow-through. When I was able to set aside my self-image, I learned that I didn't have to worry about not possessing my good qualities, only that I could rely on my network to help me boost things that were lacking. In summary, it's okay to need help because those who care about you will want to provide it. So hopefully you found this list of 11 things helpful to you, even if you're already past your teenage years. And remember, you're going to be spending most of your life in adulthood. So if you can do things that will set yourself up for success in your teenage years, that will be key. Just don't forget to also have a little bit of fun along the way. In today's video, much of my outfit is made up of garments I've had since my teen years, underscoring the point that with proper care, many garments can last you a good long time. My sport coat features a herringbone weave and is charcoal in color, though it also includes shades of brown. I'm wearing it over a plain white shirt that has a more traditionally styled point collar and barrel cuffs. This is a shirt that I've had, in fact, since my days in high school speech and debate. My tie is vintage. In fact, I received it as a gift from my grandmother, and it's one of my favorites in my collection. It's burnt orange in color, and it features a repeating geometric pattern in navy, tan, and off-white. My plain black pleated trousers are almost 15 years old. In fact, I've had them for so long that before I learned how to alter my own garments, my mother let out the cuffs at the end. After all, my legs had gotten longer, but my waistline had stayed the same size. My socks are also plain black in color, as is my belt, which features a silver buckle, and my shoes, which are cap-toed derbies. My other two accessories are from Fort Belvedere today. My boutonniere is an orange exotic Caribbean flower, and my pocket square is a brand new design. It's a wool silk blend in a color we're calling antique gold ochre, and it features paisleys in buff, red, and blue. You can find both this brand new pocket square, which also features a contrasting stitch around the edge, and the boutonniere in the Fort Belvedere shop here.